Hello everyone. So in this video, we're going to talk about subject-verb agreement. This should help you, if you weren't in class on Monday and Tuesday, should help you get through the subject-verb agreement practice assignment. It's very easy. There are a couple of things that I want to draw your attention to that you may find a little tricky, but for the most part, subject-verb agreement is pretty intuitive. If you say a sentence and it doesn't sound right, for one of the first things you want to check is if your subject and your verb agree. So as we covered before, verb tenses are really easy. You just have past, present, future, more or less. There are different variations, but past, present, future. And then verbs also come in number. That's singular and plural. So when we talk about subject, we're talking about nouns and noun phrases. But specifically, we're talking about the who or what that performs the major action of the sentence. We're talking about the main character of that sentence. So if you're looking for the subject, you want to ask yourself, who or what is the subject really about? Who is doing the thing? What is doing the thing? So if the subject of your sentence is singular, your verb needs to be singular. If your subject is plural, your verb needs to be plural. That's it. That's really easy. The problem is that there are 3 or 4 cases that are sort of special cases where you can't just say, oh, well, obviously that's plural. Obviously that's singular. So obviously I know what to do with my verb. So we're going to run through those special cases. Now, most verb forms can be used with either singular or plural subjects. However, the third person forms of verbs in the present tense and then forms of the verb be and have change to agree in number with their subjects. Now, for the most part, third person singular verbs usually just end in an S. So that's run versus runs. I run, you run, he, she, or it runs, we run, and they run. So here are a couple more examples. Notice that the only one in these 2 examples of regular verbs that has an S is the he, she, it version. You stand, he, she, it stands. They seem, he, she, it seems. So the one that messes us up the most is the forms of to be, both present and past. And part of the reason is that in Appalachian dialect, the dialect that most of us speak, we tend to, especially in the past tense, not conjugate the verb to be in the same way that standard English does. Now, this is totally okay. That doesn't mean that the Appalachian English version is wrong. All it means is that when you're in a context that uses standard English, like an academic or professional context, you want to make sure that you're using the version of the verb that standard English uses. This is just called code switching, and that's when you change your language for different settings and different contexts. So in the present tense, we would say I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, they are. Now, sometimes some dialects might say I is or you is, but standard English says I am, you are, he, she, it is. So the past tense is the one that tends to hang us up the most in Appalachian English. So I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, they were. We tend to say things like you was, we was, they was. But I and he, she, it are the only forms in Appalachian or in standard English that use was in standard English. Everything else uses were. So if you're looking at your sentence, you're trying to figure out which version to use, remember this. You want to use the standard English version of the verb was versus were. Now, when you're looking at subject-verb agreement, making your singular subject and your singular verb and your plural subject go with your plural verb, figuring out what your subject is often the most complex part of this. Because your subject, remember, is not just a noun, it's the main character of the sentence. It's the noun that does the thing. It's the noun that's doing the verb. Sometimes this is really easy, such as in the sentence, Mom enjoys bowling. Who's the main character of the sentence? Mom. Mom is the one who's doing the thing. Mom is the one enjoying bowling. Or in the second sentence, he was here a minute ago. Who's the sentence about? He. What's he doing? Was. Remember that to be and to have, is and have, was and had, those are verbs because existing is a thing that you do, or possessing something is a thing that you do, right? I have this cup. Possessing this cup is something I'm doing. It's an action I'm taking. So remember, when you're looking for your verbs, remember also to look for those to be and to have verbs. So now this is where finding our subject can get a little trickier. Look at the third sentence. One box of dishes was damaged. Our instinct may be to say that the subject of this sentence is dishes. That's not true. It wasn't the dishes that got damaged. It was one box of them. It's one box. So the subject here is not dishes, it's one box of dishes. So one box is singular. That's a singular noun. It's one box. And so because that's a singular noun, the verb also needs to be singular. One box was damaged. Look at the fourth sentence. She and her friends are at the fair. Whenever you see and, that's going to tell you that everything on either side of it, all of those things together form your subject. She and her friends, the cup and the pen, those things all together are your subject because of that and. That and tells you they all belong together. So if it just said she, it would be she was at the fair. She and her friends, though, is several things. It's at least two things, if not more. So we use the plural, are. And then finally, if you see construction like either the book or the pen, that's telling you that it's only going to be the one thing or the other thing. It's not going to be both. So because it's just going to be one thing or the other thing, you're going to use the singular form. So either the book is in the drawer or the pen is in the drawer. So we use is. And just to show that to you visually, Mom, he, one box, she and her friends, either book or the pen. So there are some special cases I want to point out to you. Like I said with and, when the subject of a sentence is composed of two or more nouns connected by and, you always use the plural verb. She and her friends are at the fair. Both pizza and nachos usually have cheese on them. When two or more singular nouns or pronouns are connected by or nor, you always use the singular verb. Now notice that's singular nouns. If it was plural nouns, either the books or the pens, you'd say are, because you're talking about multiple things or you're talking about multiple different things. It's the or you want to pay attention to. Now, finally, this is a special case that you won't see very often. Now, as we saw in the example of one box of dishes, you don't take whatever noun is closest to the verb, typically, right? That's not what determines your subject. It's not just the noun that's next to the verb. It's the noun that is the main character of the sentence. But when a compound subject, and by compound subject, we mean things like book and pen, book or pen, contains both a singular and a plural noun joined by or nor, the verb should agree with the part of the subject that is closest to the verb. This is the only time that's true. So if I said the boy or his friends, friends is plural and friends is closest to the verb. So we're going to use the plural form of the verb. The boy. Flip that around so that it says his friends or the boy, because boy is singular, the verb needs to be singular. His friends or the boy runs every day. Now again, we don't really talk this way. I just want you to be aware that if you run into a situation like this, if you need to say either the pen or the cups were on the table, You could say either the cups or the pen is on the table. So like I could say that. Both of those are correct. There's just not very many cases in which I would need to say something like that. I just want you to be aware of a special case. Now, here's one more that tends to trip us up as kind of speakers of Appalachian English. Don't is a contraction of do not. You use do not with I, you, we, and they. Don't does not go with he, she, and it. Now, I know that we tend to say that he don't like it, she don't like it. But when you actually parse it out, he do not like it, then you start to hear why in standard English it doesn't make a lot of sense to say he do not like it, she do not eat meat. Well, that sounds funny. So in standard English, we say doesn't for he, she, and it. He doesn't like it, she doesn't eat meat, they don't like it, we don't eat meat. So doesn't is what you use with he, she, and it, or other third person singular. Miss Wiseau doesn't like it. My sister doesn't eat meat. My dog doesn't bark. So make sure that you're using doesn't anytime you run into he, she, and it, third person singular subjects. So don't be misled by a phrase that comes between the subject and the verb. And I know y'all are pretty good at this, but make sure that you are looking for, again, the main character of the sentence and not just a noun or pronoun that's in the phrase. So if I say one of the boxes, I'm not talking about boxes, plural, I'm just talking about one of them. And because I'm talking about one of them, I use the singular verb, is. One of the boxes is open. In the second sentence, the people who listen to that music, the sentence is not about the music, it's about the people. And because the people is a plural collective noun, we use the plural verb are. The people are few. The people who listen to that music are few. And then you can also do that with phrases that are inside of commas. Be very careful with those. The team captain, as well as his players, is anxious. So the sentence is about the team captain, not really his players. It's about how the team captain feels. And how the team captain feels is anxious. So this should give you a sense of how to go about doing subject-verb agreement and also kind of how to avoid some of the typical pitfalls, whether that be because we speak a slightly different English than standard English, or whether that be because sometimes sentences are constructed in such a way that it's hard to find the subject. If you have any questions as you're doing the subject-verb agreement practice, please just shoot me an email, and I'm glad to help you with any questions that you have.